The HR Happy Hour Network is sponsored by WorkHuman. AI is everywhere, but here's what most headlines miss. AI is only as good as the data that feeds it. WorkHuman has built the world's deepest well of recognition data, peer-to-peer messages celebrating real achievements in the workplace. Now, they're using AI to transform this data into actionable people insights. For the first time ever, companies can discover hidden skills across departments. They can spot quiet leaders and identify who needs support and understand their people dynamics at scale. It's called human intelligence, and it's so powerful that WorkHuman guarantees measurable cultural improvements that drive real business results. Head on over to workhuman.com to learn more. WorkHuman, a proud supporter of the HR Happy Hour Network. Thanks for joining us.
Welcome back to the HR Happy Hour Show. My name's Steve Boese. Great to be with you. I'm with Trish Steed. Hey, Trish, how are you?
I'm fantastic. I'm so excited to be recording today.
I am as well. I love this topic. We have a great guest. We're going to be talking with Laura Maffucci, who's here. Laura, how are you?
Hi, good. How are you? It's great to be here. Thank you
It's
for
great
having
to
me.
see you. You are the head of HR of GP. Some folks might know this company as Globalization Partners. They've rebranded. That's the last time I'm going to mention that. But Laura is here to talk about some of the new developments in AI, how HR is adapting. And we're going to talk a little bit about one of GP's new products called GIA. It's GIA, which I've had a chance to see as part of the top HR products of the year process. Trish, I'm going to tell you what, you say this all the time when we do these shows. Oh, if I would have had this back when I was an HR leader and you had a global organization you were supporting, I'm going to tell you what, you're going to die of like, oh my God, I wish I could go back to do that, because with a tool like Gia, and I'm not just saying that, like I saw this a few weeks ago and I was like, this is one of the best things we saw all year. So we'll talk some about that. But Laura, welcome again. Maybe before we get into some of that stuff, let's maybe learn a bit more about you and then a little bit more about GP.
Okay. Well, as you said, I'm the head of HR for GP. I've been in the role about 1.5 years, but I've been with GP for about 4.5 years. And I have been, going to age myself. I've been in HR for probably 30 years. So Gen X are here, just trying through. And I've been, lucky enough to have had experience working at pretty much companies in every industry, or a lot of industries, everything from tech to CPG to services. So really lucky to have that experience, because you think you can pull from that in everything you do, no matter where you are. And GP has certainly been a very exciting place to be. We're tech forward, global employment experts, founded as an EOR company, so employer of record, and have transformed into that, tech product platform. Our EOR services are fully enabled by a fantastic tech platform that is now also enabled with AI. And now we're launching GP Gia, which is super exciting. And like you said, I often think back to the days of, we need someone in China. Oh, we don't have an entity yet. Let's get a contractor. Let's call outside counsel, and just all the hoops you had to jump through and not knowing what to do. And the company where I was doing that the most, I've come to find out GP existed already. And even without the AI, just knowing that what a global employer of record was and that it existed would have saved such headaches. So it's super, super helpful to have a partner or tool like GP and GP Gia.
I'm glad you shared that example too, because I was in that same boat throughout my career. Many different types of human resources I did, and that was often the thing. We did, not only did you not know if you needed to hire like a contractor or someone brand new. I've worked where we've actually had someone there on the ground and we just didn't know it, right? Because of all the different systems that were disparate, and it'd be like, oh, wait, we already have someone in China. What are we doing, right? So yeah, it is so important. And I think the message is it's been important, right? This is something that HR teams have needed for decades, and many still need it. And they may not be aware of it. So thank you for coming on and sharing a little bit about this. Steve, do you want to maybe kick off in terms of Gia? You've seen it. You've obviously pretty passionate about it, which makes me excited. I will say, Laura, it's rare that Steve gives such praise. So
Okay, well, that's even
yes,
better.
even
Yeah,
better.
we did see a lot of products this year in our process, over 120 submissions, 125 or something like that. I did 30 or 40 demos across the summer. And yeah, this was in my top 2 or 3 things I saw all year. And so we're seeing a lot of AI, obviously, right, in HR tech. But what I thought was really cool, and that's maybe we could even step back a little bit before we start talking about the AI, is talk a little bit about just the compliance environment right now. Nationally, here in the US, certainly, globally, incredibly complex. And what I thought was really notable about GIA in particular is it's taking this advanced AI capabilities to a problem that is a real pressing everyday problem HR folks have. So, Laura, maybe we'll start there and talk a little bit about. You've been in HR for a while, right? Trish has a ton of HR experience as well. Maybe just talk about the landscape of compliance right now and the challenges that it's coming, that presents to HR leaders.
Oh, I mean, it's just incredible the amount of constant change that you see in legislation and compliance, and needing to keep up. If you're growing at any good pace, you could hit an employee threshold that then makes you responsible for meeting some sort of compliance regulation that all along that you haven't needed to meet. Pay equity alone and pay equity legislation is such a challenge to keep up with. So and even just not even just the compliance, but also just the cultural norms
Mm-hmm.
and what's expected and standard in certain countries when it may not even be required by law is just super important to have a resource that you can trust to tell you what you need to do, what you might want to consider doing, how to perhaps, think about it in broader terms philosophically about how you're going to incorporate it in with the rest of your policies across the globe. Because when you're in many locations, there's a degree of consistency that you do want to keep because you have your philosophy of how you want to care for your employees. So then how do you take all these disparate regulations and turn them into one cohesive policy that can have each subset addressed?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'd love you to maybe elaborate a little bit on what GIA does, because Steve
Sure.
and I mean, obviously we're at a lot of events. We not too long ago were at the SHRM annual, and there are still a lot of HR leaders and even just young HR professionals who don't feel like either they think they're not using AI, right? And I know that some of the statistics that we got from GP that, 89% of
Yeah.
HR professionals are using LLMs in some way, right? So it
Mhm.
might just be a little bit of the unknown that we're not sure we're doing it. Could you maybe address that? Because I'm sure
Sure.
you impress many HR leaders as well.
So, I think the biggest thing that excites me about there's several things that really excite me about GIA. One of the biggest things is you mentioned LLMs, and that's great. That's question and answer. But most of the LLMs out there are scraping the internet, and that's their only source of their information, like your Chat GPT, your Gemini. And what some recent research has found is that a lot of those answers are coming from things like Wikipedia and Reddit and
Yeah.
Quora.
Yeah.
And you're certainly not going to be like, how am I going to stay compliant in Japan and go on Reddit and ask that
Oh
question?
my goodness.
That's not going to give you confidence that you're doing the right thing. And so GIA is really, it's the first agentic AI that's been purpose built for compliance and global HR. So we've got all of our over a decade of experience and expertise in there. Over 100,000 plus verifiable data sources in there. And we cite all of the answers that you get from GIA. It will tell you if it did come from something, a public website, a government website, or if it's an internal source. And we also have GP verified, which if you see that badge pop up on GIA, that tells you that it's based on our expertise, it's compliant, and it's been reviewed by our in-house HR and legal experts. So you know that it's accurate information, and you're not just hoping that the AI isn't hallucinating.
Yeah.
We have a lot of reasoning built into the way GIA works. I just learned about this a few weeks ago. I got to go to India for our tech summit and got to see some demos and have it explained, a little bit more. Of course, I don't really understand it that deeply, but I picked up enough to understand that there's a lot of things built into the workflow of how the AI operates, that it's reasoning and there's checks for hallucinations along the way. So it's really best in class, and it's really reliable information that people can count on and feel comfortable going to their leadership and saying, this is what we have to do.
Yeah. And that's so important because even if you're using, you mentioned Chat GPT, or maybe you're using Copilot or Claude or something like that, it will actually give you incorrect answers. And I've learned
Mhm.
that just by doing normal day-to-day things with it. And you'll say like, well, is this a verifiable statistic? Did this come from a real report? Or what? And it'll say, no, I just made it up. So I love having to not
Yeah.
even think about, is this verifiable, right? Knowing when you said that badge pops up.
Mhm.
So to me, that would be very important. It would give me comfort. Um, again, when the internet came out, I was probably like everybody else, just Googling for answers. But you're right. If you're getting it from an unverified source, it's often incorrect,
Mhm.
or at least a portion is incorrect. And you
I
just
mean,
can't
I've had
afford,
times where I've
right?
told AI, no, you're wrong, and it'll go, oh yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. At
it
least it
that is
apologizes,
the
I
weirdest
guess.
thing. I
But
had that recently
Like,
myself.
well, then what? You're not supposed. Like, why am I asking you that? Like,
I
what?
was
What?
doing
right.
some research about some legislation stuff and for a show we were doing, and I said, wait a minute, I don't think that actually made the final legislation. I think that got omitted from the law that got passed. It was this big, beautiful bill stuff. And
Right.
that's what it said back to me. Oh yeah, you're right. That didn't get included in the bill after all. I'm like, okay, well, aren't
Well,
you
you're
supposed to know
teaching the,
that? I
the
mean,
model.
well,
Oh,
You're
definitely.
teaching the model at that point. So, no, it's just really
Yeah,
important,
we're
right?
teaching
Because
the model,
you mentioned
and
trust, and it's interesting. I had just come from another conference about recognition, and it said that they were showing statistics from a huge amount of respondents in this report, and it said that that is still remaining the one biggest indicator of what someone feels about the organization they work with or they work for. So whether you're someone who works in GP or whether you're someone who is a partner working with GP and the technology, I think that's a huge factor, right? If you don't have that
huge.
trust, and the verifiable information, I think really just speaks to that level of trust that you all hold yourselves to. How do you think, like culture wise, is that something that you consciously all think about, or is that just sort of the way that everyone at GP is wired to sort of
It's just the
make
way
sure
we're
that's a priority?
wired. The compliant. That's why people um, work with us, is
yeah.
because they don't know how to be compliant in these other countries or in these other locations. And that's, if we didn't have that, if we couldn't have that trust in that competence and know that um, we had the right information, we wouldn't be where we are today. So I think it's just in the fabric of who we are. And on GPGA, the things that it does, it's even more than the compliance. And I think that's what's so exciting about it, and getting more exciting every day, because they continue to work on it. And one of the coolest things about being in HR at GP is we get to help build the products. You don't get to do
Mhm.
that in most HR jobs. And so seeing the things that it can do and knowing what we're talking to them about, like, oh, if it could do this, this would be great. It does things. It can generate FAQs for you. It can generate interview scripts for you, holiday calendars. There's all sorts of things that it can do to really improve the efficiencies, workflows. Because it's agentic, it can carry through on a process for you. So it's there's so many tools out there, and oftentimes you find you have a tool for this, you have a tool for that, you have a tool for another
Mhm.
thing. And I wouldn't go so far as to say that it's all in one, because there's certainly things that it doesn't do, but it really does a lot and can
Mhm.
really make it so much easier for you to just have everything in one place. You can upload your company's existing policies, and it
Cool.
can generate FAQs for you. It can review them and tell you if you're compliant. It can conduct a regular review for you. You could say, every 3 months, review these policies and let me know what I need to do, things like that. And so the compliance and the trust is the foundation of everything we do, but there's so much more on top of that.
Well, I think that would save a lot of money as well. When you were talking about some of those things, I'm thinking I used to have, a law firm on speed dial every day. We talked every day, and it's about
Mhm.
some of those same issues, right? Trying to verify, making sure what we were doing was compliant. on a day-to-day basis. So I don't know, Steve, you want to talk maybe a little bit about that angle
Ye-
of it?
Yeah, so there's a couple things here. One of the things we've talked about a ton in HR tech for a long time now, right, is as the tools become more capable and powerful and efficient, right, that's going to help our organizations focus on more value added things, higher value tasks, right, more the things that humans can do better than the AI can do right now, or maybe just the things we want the humans to do right now, whether that's performance coaching, leadership development, career planning with the team, all of it, just being innovative, right? And so one of the things we mentioned what some of the data says that there is, I do want to mention the GP 2025 World at Work report that's coming out that's got some really excellent data in there, Laura. And one of the data points the report pulled out, and this is a report talked to about 6,000 people globally, right? Just about what's happening with HR, what's happening in talent. And it's, one of the key stats pulled from the report is 84% of execs struggle to find skilled talent locally, but many aren't hiring internationally due to maybe misconceptions around cost, the complexity, or just they just don't know how to do it, right?
Mhm.
And so obviously that plays into some of the strengths of GP, but that's one of those higher value added things too. It's like, hey, let's think more expansively about our talent strategy. Well, you can't really do that if you're just chasing compliance all the time and trying to, stay out of trouble. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about talent challenges and sort of how some of these tools can both help you be efficient and remain compliant. We've talked some about that, but also like, hey, let's unleash HR to do some really important work.
Yeah, I think there's so much opportunity in that. And, before getting into the AI component, if I just think about EOR, um, I think it's something great that a company could partner with us and not necessarily have a formal plan to expand globally, but you could offer relocation as, voluntary relocation, not necessarily company paid, but if an employee wants to move to Italy or to Canada or wants to go to another country, um, it would enable you to retain that employee who's a very, very good employee. Or open up horizons for employees who might view that as a valuable thing to be able to maybe go off and get that worldly experience of working somewhere else. But you get to keep them. So I think that's a different way of looking at EOR, but I think it's a really, really important use case for it that more companies should think about.
Yeah.
Um, as for AI, I know everyone's afraid of it. They're afraid of their job getting replaced. I always say AI is not going to replace people. It'll replace people who don't know how to use AI.
Mm-hmm.
And
Ooh,
right
that's big.
now, we really need to use it to make us better. My team, when you talked about having legal on speed dial, we're best friends with our legal department, and we're constantly working with them, and us even adopting Gia has enabled us to not go to them with as much, and then that frees them up for more value added work. It's freeing us up for more value added work. So that's been really great. And we've been using it a lot around, if you do an employee investigation or you have an ER issue or you have a manager that needs coaching, you can put that information into all of the information you've got and ask AI to provide you with themes around the feedback, talking points to help you have that conversation. And we
Wow.
would all be creating those talking points for managers or talking points for ourselves. And we're certainly not going to pull something out of AI and then just hand it to someone
Yeah.
or just read it straight. But it almost becomes a thought partner for you, which I actually kind
Wow.
of hate, if I'm being honest, as an old lady. Like, I don't love I'm having a thought partner that's a machine. Don't know how I feel about that. But it is really, you can, and a lot of the stuff we work on is confidential. We don't have, it can get lonely. We don't have a lot of people that we can go and say, hey, look at all of this information that I just gathered from this investigation and tell me what you think you should do. There's not many people you can do that with. So it's nice to have that. Oftentimes it'll leave things out, but it'll sometimes throw things in there or an angle that you hadn't thought of or
Yeah.
you hadn't caught. just like it would if you were bouncing ideas off of someone else. So it can really help in that. And then it just makes it faster. You're not sitting there typing anything up or copy and pasting and pulling all these documents into one thing and trying to turn it into something. It can do that for you. So then that's freeing you up to spend more time in that conversation or thinking more deeply about how to approach it, or the more nuanced way you want to communicate the information, to really work on the more value added work that is required in the thinking space that you need to do it, if you are using an AI tool.
Laura, I think Steve was right. I mean, just that one example, that's enough for me to say, okay, if I had that when I
Hmm.
was working in HR, I hadn't really dug in too deep on how to use that with employee relations. But I mean, yeah, just that example. I'm thinking about all of the hours you're saving, all of the back and forth, maybe. And when you talk about, HR is like being on an island, really.
It
Like you
is.
said, there are very few people you can reach out to and run these things by. And yeah, I don't know, fellow Gen Xer, but I kinda like the idea of a thought partner. I haven't heard anyone
Yeah,
describe it like
it's
that,
like
but that's
begrudgingly I like it kind
I
of
do.
situation. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I'm
it's a
thinking of
great term.
examples, right?
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
great term. It's one of the things we're working on too for next year is this idea of these AI digital assistants or, LLMs, whatever the terminology is, but really just being fine tuned to individuals, to knowing
Mhm.
you, knowing what your style is, knowing what your strengths are, knowing what your weaknesses are, and really being that partner. I think we're
Yeah.
slowly but surely going to work towards that. I think that's where it's going.
I think I saw somewhere, I don't know what company, but a CHRO, it's one of the bigger organizations out there, has created, and I need to do this, I just haven't had the time. They've created a persona for each of the executive team.
Ooh.
And then they go in and they'll say,
Okay.
need to communicate this to the
Mhm.
CFO. And they use
Mm.
the persona of that particular CFO. It's not just like any CFO, it's your CFO because
Yeah.
they're all their own person. And it helps her to frame the best way to put things in front of her executive team. So I need to
Yeah.
do that. I just haven't had a chance.
That's a
I
great
started it and I
idea.
did it wrong and
That's
I
so
screwed it
cool.
up and I got to get back in there and try again.
What no,
That's a
see,
cool
if
idea. I'm gonna
nothing
steal
else,
that for sure. I'm gonna
like, it's those little nuggets that you only get from talking to someone
Yeah.
Yeah.
where you think of like, "Oh my gosh, that would have made my job much
So
easier,"
much
and all
easier.
the jobs much easier,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. One other
Wow.
theme, Laura, that's come up a lot in the HR discussion around AI, and you hinted at it a little bit, but I'd like to maybe go into it a little bit more, which is how HR, like early career, mid career professionals, really need to start thinking about skill sets. Folks who want to be in HR, folks who aspire to the head of HR role someday, right? I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that, whether it's how you're working with your teams there or just your advice from being at this real interesting intersection between HR and the most latest technology to support HR. I'd love for you to think about and tell us a little bit about what you think about how HR folks need to prepare and develop.
I think that learning agility is key. I think that's key in anything, but especially now. And that's not just the ability to learn something quickly; it's the ability to apply it to your work immediately. Like you can learn something but not know what to do with it. It's learning it and knowing what to do with it and how to use it in your work, and staying curious. And when you're curious and you're agile and you're getting in there and you're learning about the things that are going on within and outside of your own center of excellence, you are versatile enough that when changes happen, you can pivot with them quickly, keep up with it, get moved into new roles, be marked as someone who can, is the perfect person to take on that opportunity. I most heads of HR and CHROs, they didn't come from the comp and HRS world, but I did.
Uh,
Mm.
And that's because I was always able to try, and connective intelligence too, like connecting all of the pieces together and understanding how they all intersect with each other. Um, it puts you in a position just be able to do more if you want to, or if you don't want to. Like, I wasn't necessarily aspiring to do this. It all just sort of, I wasn't even aspiring to get into HR. I wound up in compensation by accident. So, you just kind of have to be open to whatever's going to land in your lap. But,
Yeah. Or
um,
none of us ever
no
went
one,
like,
I tell people
right?
that all the time.
You're a
People are
little
like, why'd
girl,
you get
you're
into HR? And
I
I'm like,
dreamed
oh,
about sitting right here today talking about
right.
this
I dreamed
for
about,
40 years.
plans my whole life as a little girl. I think everyone gets into HR kind of by accident.
Yeah.
And, but you just, it's being ready to grab those opportunities and being able to learn and not be afraid. I think it's so easy. And you especially see it in the more process driven areas, like around your HRISs or operational things like that. People can become the systems and the processes that they support and that they put in place. It becomes who they are. I've remembered having to say to someone in an HRIS role when we were looking to shift to a new system, and people really were unhappy with the system that we had. And I paused one day and I said, they hate the system. They don't hate you.
Right.
Because you get so attached and it
Right.
becomes so much. And
Yeah.
I think people think that clinging on to those old ways because they know it best or they know how to do it best, and it keeps them safe and it gives them that job security, but it actually does the opposite. And being more open to new things and, thinking about things from a like let go or be dragged type of mentality is really, really important.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's why human resources in general is becoming even more and more attractive to college students. We're seeing students actually intend to go into it.
Mm-hmm.
And whether even you could start your career if you're listening right now and maybe you're an office manager or you're in marketing or you're an accountant, right? There's a spot for you in HR because as you mentioned, like we have those aspects of human resources that are very compliance driven, very process driven, but yet we also can be really highly creative and innovative dreamers as well. And I think, yeah, when you're talking about Gia, my mind is, I mean, obviously I'm excited to like get my hands
I
in
can't
it
wait for
and
you to see
play,
it.
but but I'm already thinking like, wow, I could really use it for some of those very compliance process driven things. But I also feel like you could use it to dream up things a little bit. Could
Oh, yeah.
have you thought of some of those ways? What are maybe one or two that you're just either hoping to try or
It might not be the exact thing, but one thing, the times that I've kind of just been like, wow, look what it can do
yeah,
if you use it. There was a concept around something that for the 4 years I've been here, we have never been able to get people to understand. And I have been fairly new. She's been here almost a year, head of talent acquisition. And she put a presentation in front of me about the topic, and there's this visual in there about this one thing. And I looked at it and instantly it made sense. And I was like, wait a minute. I'm like, how did you do this? We've been trying for 4 years. And
yeah,
she's like, I just put it into AI and
Mm.
it generated this visual, and it did exactly what a visual is supposed to do. The minute you look at it, you understand what you're supposed to take away from it.
yeah,
And we've got it in our onboarding stuff now. And it was just a game changer. So
love
um, I still haven't figured out how to do that myself either. But
You know what? That's the
yeah.
thing. What I love though, Laura, is that you are the head of HR and you're basically saying like you're a lifelong learner. And that's okay. We're not expected as leaders to know it all. And to take someone who might be there, a less amount of time, or maybe they're a more junior person, just out of college in general,
Mhm.
we can I don't know, I don't want to say level the playing field, but in many ways it can because their contributions, their ideas become game changers, as in your example.
Absolutely. I think someone said to me very early on in my career that the way to be a good leader is to hire people that are smarter than you and let them do their jobs. And I have
Uh,
lived, by
Mhm.
the time I got into a position where I had people reporting to me, I absolutely wholeheartedly believe that. I tell people all the time, my team is the brains of the operation. And
Mhm.
I don't hesitate to bring them in there with me because they're doing it. They're in the day to day.
Yeah,
They're in the weeds. And you can't, as a leader, you can't be afraid of that.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's why I
and
work
I
with
think
Team
that this
Boats.
this raises a couple really important points, I think, as well, Laura. I'd like to make at least one anyway. And another data point from the World of Work report is that as many as 90% of employees are worried right now that their skills are not going to keep up, right? Maybe whether it's AI or other technologies or just whatever types of skills that they need in general, they're worried. And folks are worried, at least in the US, the labor market's a little challenging right now for many roles. But some of the things you're describing and talking about, working with your team members, et cetera, about embracing these tools and exploring them and experimenting with them and leveraging them, that's kind of maybe some a calling for leaders who are listening to this, right? I'd encourage leaders who are listening to this to approach it in that way, right? Because that's a very real thing. You can't lead a team very successfully if half of the team or 90% of the team is concerned about their kind of their future, right?
Yeah, the fear is paralyzing. I think we've done a good job at GP. I think, like any company we put out there, you're expected to use AI in your job. We're an AI company. And a lot of companies are doing things like that. But what we made sure to do was to follow through on that and not just say it and then go away.
Yeah.
We have an AI council that the chief technology officer started that I am on. And we meet, I think, at least once a month. It might be every other week. We're meeting today. And we are constantly reviewing the policy because so much changes in AI. You can't do your AI policy and then walk away from it. It's like weekly, you're making updates to that AI policy. And we put a lot of focus on enablement. So that people know that they are encouraged to go out there and find AI tools. We have a Slack channel dedicated to AI so that people can go in there and chat about fun ways they're using it, ways they're using it for work. And they know how to approach it if they would like to bring on a new AI tool so that we make sure that it goes through the proper vetting from a security standpoint. And I think the enablement for people around this is so important in so many different ways. One, for the organization, because the security aspect of it is so important, and so many leaders are worried about security, and they should be. Then people don't think about it. You paste that email into ChatGPT and it's got confidential company information.
Yeah.
That's out there forever. Just because you delete it doesn't mean it's gone. And they don't realize that. And so we have a tool that we use we have an enterprise license with. And so we know that our information stays there. It doesn't go out to ethers. We don't allow people to use ChatGPT in-house, but we do have something that we encourage them to use, and they are. But also, it's becoming a part of all aspects of our lives. And one thing in HR, and having been in the total reward space and benefits, I think it's really important that what you're offering out there to employees is helping them be the best that they can be, both at work and at home. And most people look now at work as one way to broaden themselves as human beings overall, and not just work. And we're bombarded with AI things every day. There's a level of critical thinking that is so lacking that we need to improve in people. Like it's almost an emergency situation, I think, to get those critical thinking skills out there. But what you learn at work about safely using AI, you can apply to your personal life around safely using AI. What you learn at work about how do you discern if something is real or if it's AI, you can apply that in your personal life, and vice versa. So I think that it's really important for organizations, and you don't have to put a lot of money into it. We it's not like we're out there buying tons of tools and paying for all this training and education. We're enabling people. People are sharing their own knowledge. We have a great AI team who built Gia, and they're passionate about AI. They love talking about AI. So we'll do office hour sessions on Zoom, and people can come and ask them questions. We've run little workshops where they've come and they've taught people how to prompt, because sometimes you'll think the AI tool you're using isn't great and it's not the tool. You just don't know how to prompt it. And so teaching people how to prompt, you can use that in your personal life. And it's fun and it connects people, when you're in a global remote environment, having that connection. So it's just one more way for people to be connecting and talking to each other about things. We've got people posting things out there like they were going to a wedding and they didn't know what color nail polish to wear with their dress, and they asked ChatGPT and it told them, and they posted that out there for everyone. It's just fun stuff like that. And I just think that's really important. And I think that goes to the whole curiosity piece right along there with the agility. People need to be curious in order to take advantage of any of this. And if you don't have that curiosity, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. I'm glad you really gave an example, though, of how you enable that within GP, because when we talk to leaders, it's sort of one extreme or the other, right? You're embracing it, especially by saying we have dedicated people who are thinking about this all the time, so that you are doing it safely, so that people do have an alternative to ChatGPT. I think the organizations that are stuck in like, we're not going to do it, we're not going to use it, those are the very ones that are going to be at risk of their employees. Your employees are going to use it somehow. And if you don't give them that outlet, a safe outlet, and let them be part of that discussion, you'd be surprised what information is going to wind up public.
Yeah.
Right?
And in the,
Hide from it. It's like social media, like when
Yeah.
your kid makes a mistake on social media, you don't take social media away. You teach them how to use social media, and it changes how we do everything. You think back, I tell this story all the time, but we had hired someone to work to be social media specialist, and people started complaining to HR that we had an employee who was sitting on Facebook all day because and that's what they were supposed to be doing. So it takes people a bit to get used to this new work.
I saw a meme once on this. It was like kind of an open office plan kind of company kind of deal, and big monitors and all that. And the person who had that job just put a big thing on her. I think it was a woman, on the back of her chair, taped the chair and said, "I'm the social media manager. I'm supposed to be on Facebook."
Yeah.
And taped it to the rear of her seat.
Exactly. So it takes people a little while to catch up and be like, oh, we can't pretend this isn't happening. Like
Right.
this is here. And if I don't go with it, then I'm just going to be left behind.
Yeah.
I think
And that's how it is with AI, right? AI is here. It's infiltrating every organization. It's increasingly important in the HR service delivery, talent management, compliance. And I mean, we talked a lot about Gia, but it's worth talking about because I mean, it's a breakthrough product for sure in this space. A space that's kind of crowded, quite frankly, but it has so much in there that really stood out in the process of looking at, like I said, dozens and dozens of technologies this summer. Gia really stood out for many of the reasons Laura talked about. Some of the reasons that you'll see if you get a demo of Gia or start to use it yourself. And Trish, like I said, once you see it, you'd be like, oh my gosh,
I'm going to be quitting my job.
Where was this in 2007?
You almost want to make sure that I'm there when you see it for the first time. Yeah. I'm so excited for you to see it.
I know. Like, I'm not even going to lie. Like, things that are far less impressive over the last 15, well, I've not been an HR professional for about 12 years. I've been an analyst, but I've literally cried before at seeing something where it really touches me, like, wow, that would have saved me or my team members so much time. And I always, Steve probably gets tired of me saying it, but it's like, I envision all those nights where I worked late and I was away from my little kids and came to practices late or whatever, because I do love my job. I took it very seriously. I love human resources and I love helping people, but that's where the tears come from. So I would imagine y'all need to send me some GP Kleenex or something when I tissues, because I think that's it. And if I haven't seen it yet fully. I've seen like the, screenshots and so forth, but I think that's the message. Like, if you're in human resources and you're looking at these technologies, think about it in that perspective. What does this save me? Yes, it does make all of these other things like compliance and things that you want to happen, and maybe gives you better answers and opportunity for your creativity. But there is a cost to our lives when we don't have the right tools at work. And so, I could see someone explaining it to me. Oh, and by the way, you're going to save 16 hours of work a week, for example. And then in my mind, I'm playing back, wow, okay, that would be with my family, or that might be with a sport I like, or my church, or my whatever, right? Whatever it is that you want to do. So thank you for working at GP, a place that's creating technology like this. And also it says a lot, I think, that they come to you and your team for your input along the way. They're not just many vendors, they don't ask, right? They're building what they think HR needs. I love the fact that GP, they're really taking what you think into account.
They really are.
And
this has been so much fun, Laura. So I want to thank you once again for taking some time to join us. This has been super, and I love the Gen X representation and ownership, because I'm there with you all the way.
We are there.
Churches too.
They forget about it. We're really running the world. So
exactly. About time, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, we need to run it more, I guess.
Yeah, we do. We should probably step up.
We should probably step up. Yeah.
We will put some links in the show notes to the GP 2025 World at Work Report, some links to where you can learn more about GIA. That's GIA GIA that we've been talking about so much. And we encourage you to check those out. Laura, if anybody wants to sort of connect with you, we can look you up on LinkedIn.
Sure can.
Yep, absolutely. We'll put that link in as well. And awesome stuff. I'm so, again, congratulations. You're representing the entire team right now, Laura.
Right.
So congratulations to the team for GIA for the award this year. And great to see you. And thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. And thank you so much for your enthusiasm about GIA. And I hope I get to see you.
We will, absolutely.
Very
Soon,
good.
Trish, good stuff. I love talking
know.
HR. I love talking HR tech, and we hit it all today. So great stuff. Want to remind our listeners, go to hrhappyhour.net for all the show archives. Some cool new things in the works coming soon. So stay tuned for that. And thank you for listening. And if this episode sort of stood out to you, tell a friend and come see us at hrhappyhour.net. For Trish Steed, for our guest Laura Maffucci from GP, my name's Steve Boese. Thanks so much for listening. We will see you next time, and bye for now.